Book Dragons, I am back. I'm here to do my second half of my April reading wrap-up, and I actually read 19 books. I'm going to talk about the second half, so I don't know how many books I'm actually talking about, but that is how many books that I've read, and I had a pretty good reading for the second half of the month. So I wound up reading 19 things overall. I read 6,974 pages. My average page count per day was 232, which is probably what I want to. I want to read 200 pages a day. I want to read 100 pages physically and 100 pages in my audio every day, and I am definitely getting closer to that as we kind of head towards the end of the year, especially listening-wise. My average page count was 367. I did have some chunkier books this month, and then I did read a lot of fantasy. I read 4 books with rep, 10 from authors I read before, and I hauled 31 books. This was BookCon, and I did buy quite a few books, okay? I had 7 5-stars, I had 7 4-stars, I had 2 3.5 stars, I had 1 3-star, and 1 2-star for an average rating of 3.95, which is actually really, really good. I read 13 new releases, I read 3 backlists, I read 3 from last year, I read 11 physical, 5 audio, 3 audiobooks, which is so good, and then I started with 3 stories, I continued in 4, I caught up with 2, and I read 12 standalones, at least at the moment. I read 1 middle grade, 8 young adult, and then 10 adult. So I read 10 arcs, 2 from Audible, 1 from NetGalley, and 6 owned. And I read 5 romance, 4 fantasy romance, 7 fantasy, 1 manga or graphic novel, and I read 1 fiction, 1 nonfiction, and 1 mystery. Okay, and now let's get into the books that I read. So all of those are good things. Sorry, I'm pulling up my Goodreads because I was doing this before and I forgot a book, so I want to try to avoid that if I can. So the first book that I read in the second half of the month was Half City by Kate Golden. I actually like this book. This book is Buffy, and I liked it. I had a fun time with it. I gave this book like 4 stars, and it was Buffy, but with like an academy setting. It was very urban fantasy. We had a school, we had friends, and it was just fun. I felt like I was reading Buffy. I felt like I was reading like a police procedural. There was a murder mystery element to the story, and I had a fun time. So I really am excited for Cursed City. I think I might keep this for a little bit, and then, I don't know. I liked it, but I didn't love it. But I really enjoyed it, so I'm gonna definitely keep reading the series. So that was one that I read, and then I wound up listening to The Grimoire Grammar School Parent-Teachers Association by Catherine Rockus, and I gave this book 5 stars. This book was so funny. I just love this. This gave me like Gilmore Girl vibes, but also like light fantasy. So basically you have a main character named Vivian, and her daughter Arya gets turned into a werewolf, and she has to go into this like mythical community to kind of protect her daughter and find out what's happening, and things kind of go from there. It was so funny, and it was just like reading like a small town romance but with magic and monsters. And there was also like, I'm a teacher, so like, the updates you get on like Google Classroom, and it was just very, very fun. There was like a marriage in trouble in here. There was friends, and it was just fun. There was like a lot of murder mystery, like a lot of mystery elements to the story, and it just made my heart happy. I'm gonna keep this book because it's very, very cute, and I really want to read more by this author in the future. But it basically was just like a small town book with like monster elements, and I had a fun time. I gave it 5 stars. And the next book I read was my audiobook. I'll attach a photo of that here. It is Told You So by Macy Neely, the Secret Lives of Morgan Wives person. Was like very much about her young adulthood, her college years. It really didn't talk about Secret Life of Mormon Wives and any of the stuff that happens like on camera. It's really like pre her life on that show. I liked it. I thought it was very interesting, and I enjoyed it. I thought it was a solid listen. I liked that she read it to me, and it was fun. I don't really rate nonfiction books because I find that a little bit weird, but I had a fun time. I would listen to another book by her, but it was just interesting. I like reading from books from different people's point of views, and hers is definitely a different point of view. So I don't rate that one, but it was a fun listen, and I'm happy that I picked it up. And then the next book that I listened to was Death in the Dark by Ellie Alexander. I will attach a photo of that book here. Books 2 in her like spin-off series of her secret bookcase mystery series. This one, there is like an underlying mystery that you're kind of being exposed to, but this one basically has to do with a murderer at the high school, and our dynamic duo is trying to solve it. There is a slight undercurrent of a mystery that we've been gearing up for like 2 books. So I hope that the next book we get is more about the mystery, like the overall mystery, but I had a fun time and I gave it 4 stars. These are such passive listens and I really needed that. So definitely cozy mysteries are my books I go to when I'm struggling to focus because they're pretty easy to follow. And then the next book that I read was a little bit of a disappointment, and that is The League of Dangerous Young Ladies by J.A. Morgenstein. I only gave this book 2 stars. This did not give me Buffy vibes. This book was supposed to be like a historical fiction Buffy mashup with a lot of characters inspired by historical figures. It didn't work. You're following Rose Moriarty, the daughter of Moriarty, and things go from there. None of the characters felt very realized to me. It was a bit of a slog. I didn't really like reading this book. I only gave it 2 stars, but if you like books like the Athena Society and want like a YA version, you should pick this book up. I just didn't feel like the characters were well developed for me to care. And the next book that I read was The Gravewood by Kelly Andrew. I gave this book 4 stars. I had really mixed reports on Kelly Andrew's first book that I read, Blood in Your Bones. This book is a little bit different. It really gave me like Last of Us vibes, and I have been craving that. So I've read this book and I enjoyed it. It basically is vampires. You follow a main character named Shay, and there's always deaf rep in this author's books because she is deaf or has deaf representation. So, and she basically has to kind of work with the leader of the vampire gang to kind of get her batteries, and then they kind of get caught up in some other mysteries along there. And I really did like this book. It was a fun read, very engrossing, very, very quick, and it was a fun one. I really did get like The Last of Us vibes from the story, and it was enjoyable. The characters felt a little bit more like I could grit my teeth into them and kind of catch them, but I liked it. I would definitely read book 2 in this series, and it was a fun one. Definitely liked it more than the author's previous books. And then the next book that I read was actually a DNF. So I did wind up DNFing This Monster of Mine by Shanna Abasiski and This Blade of Yours. I just DNF'd them and I won't be reading them, but I did want to put them in here before I sell mine on Pango and try to trade this. And then the next book that I finished was Fake Skating by Lynn Painter, which I gave this book 4 stars. This one was really, really fun. It was a second chance romance about a main character named Danny who moved back to Minnesota, and she kind of reconnects with her best friend. And yeah, it was fun. I gave it 4 stars. I really do like, you know, YA contemporaries. They're very, very fun to me. I really need to read more of them, but this one was fun. I like this author's other YA books and adult books, and it was a fun read. And then the next book I read was Once Swindled by Laura Sebastian. This is a NetGalley arc that comes out in August, I think. I will attach a photo of that book here. It's a Regency rom-com with fantasy romance vibes about a con artist that wounds up being in the same environment of the first boy she ever conned, and there was a second chance romance involved. It's a light magical society with magic. For some reason, this book gave me Bridgerton vibes, gave me Penn and Colin vibes. It gave me like Betrayal, Lady Whistledown-esque. It was a light magic society, which I loved. It had such a cute second chance romance, and there was a lot of side characters that we met that I hope get books in the future, but I really had a fun time. I gave this book 5 stars and I loved it. And the last book that I read in the month of April was All We Once Had by Katie Upperman. I'm so happy my spinner wheel picked this because I probably would have unhauled this book and never read it. But we have a character named Piper and her older sister named Tati. They live in this Florida apartment complex, and then we have a young boy named Henry, and they met one night a couple of years ago, and they kind of had a night together, and then they never saw each other. And then Henry moves to Florida, kind of escape his past, and they kind of reconnect. And I love this book. It was very, very fun, very, very emotional, and I really liked it. I think this might be one of my favorite contemporary books I read in recent years. It was emotional. It packed a punch. It was about grief and dealing with your past, and like, I just really liked it, and I gave this book 4 stars. So that was all the books I read in the month of April. Let me know in the comments what was your top read. I would love to know, and I will talk to you guys later for another video. Bye, or another video. Bye, book friends.